do have before me Mr. Jules Charville. He is one of the territorial councillors in the French part of the island, and for those who likes to say in the north or in Marigot, let me appease your situation. He's also the leader of the Hope Party, and I'm happy to have him here because just recently there was a visit of the president of the Republic of France, and there are many theories that came out of his visit, and there's no better way to hear from him. And I'm going to shut up now. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Charville. How are you?
Good afternoon, Wendell.
It's always a pleasure, you know.
Good afternoon to the radio listeners. Yes, first of all, I want to thank you for the invitation. I think I was here a few months ago, and I was looking forward to be back, so thank you for bringing me back.
Yeah. Well,
and
one of the reasons why I think it's important again, this great country, talking about Dutch and French, has been joined to the hip for generations.
Yeah.
I remember you as a young kid as well. When I was into my music, you were the man who we had to deal with, and you were over on this side. And for a moment, I could have never figured out that you were actually established on the French part of the island, because it was all one anyway.
Yes, well, actually, you're talking about the days of Scorpio Music Store.
Yeah, that's correct.
And yes, it seemed that way, and for me, it felt that way because I also live over here for quite a while.
Okay.
So maybe that's why you felt that way. I live on the Dutch side for about 8 years.
Okay.
And I feel that I'm part of both sides.
Yeah.
Both sides, actually. Actually, even by birth, my mother is from the Dutch side.
Okay.
You see. So, and I have family on both sides.
Yeah.
So I am a product of both sides, of St. Martin. And when we say St. Martin, we're talking about Dutch, French, North, South, like how you said just now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. All right. But we are still grappling with the reality of two different nations. Let me just put it that way, but you can clarify it for me. We're still dealing with that difference. And a lot of times some of the similarities still show in terms of how the state of France and the country of the Netherlands deal with the Dutch part and the French part. Now, in your case, I really wanted to get your take on behalf of giving the people on this side an opportunity to figure out, just what it meant for the French part of the island when they have gotten the visit of the President of the Republic. In your view, how did it all go down?
Well, Wendell, I did not expect anything that we have seen. I did not expect anything similar. I knew that he was coming. I knew that he promised a year ago to come back, because he came, the President of France, of course, came to the island like 5 days after, not to be exact, 8 days after the passage of Irma. He came right after, and he promised to come back in 1 year, which he did. But I was more looking for a visit, kind of quiet, traditional visit, and even an official visit, because the listeners have to know that this was not, should not be considered as an official visit to the collectivity.
Why not?
Of St. Martin. Well, first of all, if it was an official visit, then the elected officials, would be invited.
I see.
He would have visited the what we call the Hotel de la Collectivité, which is, like, if you want to compare it with over here, the administration building, where the council sits, the councillors sit, and the territorial council is in that building, the executive council also. So that would be the place for him to visit, and there would be an official meeting, whether he would have chosen to meet only the executive council or the entire territorial council. But that would be the official visit, where he would address himself to the council or the executive council, and vice versa. The executive council members would have the opportunity to address him and talk about our grievances and things that matters to us. But
That was not the
that
case.
didn't happen, and it was not scheduled to happen. So even before a few days, then let's say, because weeks before we knew he was coming, but a few days before, there was a release of his schedule for both islands, St. Bart's and St. Martin. And when we compare them, we would realize that in St. Bart's, there was a scheduled meeting between the elected people there and him and his ministers, the ministers that were with him. And when we looked at our schedule, the schedule that he put together for here, there was no meeting with the elected official schedule. And so that was rather strange. So instead, what he did, he chose to go into a particular area. It was announced that he would be visiting certain places in French Quarter. And from there, he would go to Orion Bay, etc. But the places that were scheduled to be visited in French Quarter, he actually didn't do exactly that. He chose to meet the population in French Quarter. So what he did is he went into an area where there are quite a few buildings of what they call social apartments, low-cost apartments, but they were still damaged and still are today. Most of them, the roofs were still off during his visit, and he knew that because he's the president of the Republic of France. He knows everything, whatever he wants to know, he can know. Yeah. So he knew that this particular area, if he goes into this area, what he would have seen. So he chose to go there and spent most of the afternoon just meeting people. Actually, he spent about 25 minutes speaking to just one lady. That created a big embarrassment, and that's what we're going to go into. I don't know if he was looking for the opportunity to do it, but he got an opportunity to embarrass us, we from the French side, by embarrassing our president. You see? Which is, there's a lady during that conversation, the lady that kept him for about 25 minutes. During that conversation, she told him, listen, our president of the collectivité, told us that you have not sent any money to us. How true is that? And he said, really? That was said? And then he turned and looked for wherever the president of the collectivity was located, which was a little bit far away. And the way he called him was like calling a little boy or he really belated him and say, hey, president, come here, that kind of thing. And the way he spoke to him by asking him, this lady just told me that you said I didn't send any money. Am I dreaming or what? That kind of thing. Yeah. Wow. And of course, being embarrassed and did not expect that kind of question from him, the president just stayed there and then just smiled and did not say anything. But that video, that image went around the world. And when you would look at the national TV, because it was, he came here, his aircraft, official aircraft, like what for the U.S. would be considered to be Air Force One,
yes.
While the French Air Force One was sitting at Juliana Airport. And on that plane came in, I think, over 100 journalists.
Yes.
And they all were there with the cameras and everything. So that moment
was captured.
And then retransmitted all over France and nationally. So, of course, you got calls coming from different places in France and say, hey, what's going on? How could you be, how could your president embarrass you like that kind of thing? But I think it was meant to be because he talked before that. He talked about how corrupted we are.
Yeah,
he talked about higher supervision in his own way, because the question also was asked. As I said, he just was looking for opportunities to answer certain questions for which he had the answers, but looking forward to the questions.
Yes.
So when those questions would come, there would come the answers that he had prepared.
Yeah.
So, for instance, after speaking to this lady that created the problem, I call it a problem, the embarrassment of the president of the collectivity, there's a lady that asked him that was talking about, before that, the vice president also got his share. The vice president in charge, let's say the equivalent of the person that would be in charge of Rumi. Our vice president that is in charge of that. Mm-hmm. So that means you're in charge of reconstruction, in charge of the roads, etc.
Yes.
And a lady also said to him, well, you know, it is only because of your visit that the roads have been clean and you've seen the sidewalks painted, but it's only because of your visit. And he said, really? Again, so he said, where's the vice president in charge, whatever. But he didn't say in charge, but we knew that that was him.
Yeah.
And he called him, and again, he confronted him with the lady, say, here, Mr. Vice President, this lady is telling me that it's only because of my visit you have done this, which is cleaning the road. Yeah. And the guy just stayed there and smiled and folded his hand and could not say anything, you know. But he put them in a situation, I mean, the local administration, in a very tight and embarrassing situation.
It seems like it was unofficial then in terms of his communication with the elected officials when he is going to, on the spur of the moment, refer to them in response to what was said to him by an ordinary citizen. So it was very unofficial.
Very unofficial. He was okay for us to understand why he did what he did as far as with the crowd, why he spent so much time with the people, is because when he came here, he was very, very unpopular in France. His popularity was and still is going downward. And visiting Guadeloupe, Martinique, Saint Martin, and Saint Barts, he told himself, and that's what I saw, and based on the comments that we see nationally, that he wanted to take this opportunity, visiting these islands, to show his sides of empathy, compassion, and so he's hugging the babies, smoothing their head, kissing a lot of ladies, hugging them, spending time talking to them. And that was the image that he wanted to give, and that he is concerned about the people, because what was said about him before coming here in France, and still is, by the way, now they're saying, okay, maybe we should reconsider and pay more attention to how he's treating the people now. But he was more positioning himself as someone that is more looking down at the people, and not, and so he wanted to say, hey, actually his nickname up to today, since a few months, is Jupiter, you know, and that's how they call him in France. Yeah. So he wanted to give a nice image, and there was this opportunity here.
Yes.
If I don't know if you saw the pictures, but he actually stayed in the rain. It really began to rain, but I mean, really raining, and he stood up in the rain with no umbrella. Wanted willfully to get wet, showing that he's staying with the people in the rain. He visited a young gentleman that just came out of jail for armed robbery, and when he went to the apartment to visit the gentleman, there he was with his brother, the gentleman, and none of them were clothed.
Properly clothed.
They just had on the pants, no shirt, and he actually took
a picture.
Yeah, with the tattooed guys, and this guy just came out of prison, and he wanted to explain why he's doing that. And of course, it cost him something, because one of those guys did a sign with a finger, and that went, of course, worldwide. And his political opponent, mostly from the extreme right in France, Madame Le Pen, she, while he was still here, attacked him, and he answered from here the following day. Actually, there was a press conference, and he answered her. So national politics was played out here, right here. So, and within 24 hours. So I'm just saying all of that is that he came here on a mission, which was one, and that is my analysis, to try to better his image, nationally, and two is to embarrass this local government.
Wow.
This local government is a problem, a small problem, but yet a problem for him. Why? Because the president of the collectivity happens to be someone from the right, but you can be from the right, the left, the center, or even be a member of the President Macron's movement, which is a movement that is neither from the right nor left. It's called République en Marche. But you can be so, any leader from Saint Barts or Guadeloupe, but to go and actually show it. For instance, the member of parliament at the level of France, our member of parliament, when we elect our member of parliament, we only have one. That person goes to sit in parliament in France. We don't have a parliament. We have a territorial council. So, Madame Javois Claire was elected member of parliament. So she went to sit in France. But that was the person that Daniel Gibbs, our president, selected. But he did not put her to sit in a position because the right Mr. Macron government is composed of different movement, people from the right, from the left, from the center. But those from the right that are part of his government have been ousted by the leader of the right because he considered, okay, you're all from the right, but you join Macron, therefore we don't want you in our party. But they're still from the right, but they consider themselves, they call it in French, la droite constructive, the constructive right. And they now that stayed right, the right wing of the right, they consider themselves to be the hard right, those who want to fight Macron. So our president found himself in that group, the group that wants to fight Macron.
Your president or the
the
senator?
President Gibbs, president of the collectivity. He put our member of parliament in France to sit in parliament with the group that fights him.
Against.
And then the leader of that group that fights Macron is his number one political opponent. Now, back in February 2018, this gentleman that is the leader of the main party that is fighting Macron, his main political opponent, he has, in February 2018, chosen 11 counselors, people that would counsel him, political counselors. And among the 11, here comes his choice of Mr. Daniel Gibbs, our president, local president. So he became, in 2018, one of the counselors of the man that Macron has to fight, which is the man, if he goes to election next month, next year, in 3 years, this is the guy that normally would give him a run for his money. Yeah. So when he's realizing, they're saying, no, they don't think it's that. But if you analyze it right, you would realize that if that was not the case, he would not have considered him to be a threat.
Yeah.
Because you're here on a little island that barely anybody knows in France, and you're in a little corner, you're no trouble to me. But now you come in on a national stage to be the counselor of someone that is my main opponent. Yeah. You are a problem to me. So coming here, he came with the intention of not doing anything nice to that, which is to us, by the way.
Because he sees the president of the collectivity very different than how he thinks. I'm talking about Daniel Gibbs.
Yes.
Is seen by Mr. Macron as very different than how Daniel Gibbs thinks that Mr. Macron should be looking at him.
That is correct. That is correct.
So that is creating the problem.
Because to confirm what you just said, I would go as far as saying as Mr. Gibbs, the President Gibbs, said in an interview after February, when this happened, when he became one of the counselors, he said, I had a meeting with the President Macron, and then I asked the people that were with us to leave us alone for a while, but of course with the agreement of the President of France, and so that I can explain to him that, a few days ago I became counselor of this gentleman, and it is, and he said, well, President Macron told me, well, I didn't know that, but okay, that's fine. Come
He knew,
on.
he knew.
Come on. So in other words, is what you said. He thought by telling him that, it's like, okay, it's
Throw
just
water on it.
politics, it's
Yes.
okay.
No.
He's not. First of all, you sent him a member of parliament that is sitting presently with a group that is fighting his MPs.
Yes.
So you're opposing everything they're proposing. You sent a member of parliament that said that she has no confidence because you had to vote confidence, yes or no, into the government. And the group that she is in, they said no confidence in his government.
Yeah.
Then, in 2 years from now, in 2020, will be the election of our senator. But the senator is not, in our situation, our status, it is not the population that elects
The senators.
senator. It is the councillors
In France.
and the deputy. So together, the 23 councillors and the deputy, we vote in. Well, we choose a senator among the candidates. There will be candidates, and we choose one, and the one that gets the most votes is elected senator. Now, he knows that Mr. Gibbs eventually will be the one to select a senator. That senator is going to be from the hard right. Here comes a senator and he in the Senate to fight him again. You see?
So
You
that
see?
explains why there was no intention of an official visit to the collectivity, a government that falls under the Republic. Well, not under, but it's one of the outermost regions, right? We are.
Yeah, we are outermost region. We're
Yeah.
not an OCT.
Yeah,
like,
but we fall under
yeah.
France as it as.
Well,
we speak.
the
We are
outer,
part of
it has
France.
nothing to do with the outermost region because that's the European status. But we do, now that we have moved away from Guadeloupe, it's something like what happened for St. Martin that side. Move away from Curacao, become country within country, but you are more now linked directly to Holland. You deal directly with Holland. We, same thing.
Yeah.
We were under Guadeloupe, got away from Guadeloupe, got
So
our
we deal directly with
status.
France.
Now we're dealing directly with France. Therefore, now, as a consequence,
Yeah.
we have more presence of France, more state people here, more state services, and then President Macron promised even more
Yeah.
because people are requesting certain things. And I'm always saying, I'm still saying, be careful of what you're asking for. If you keep asking for more presence of the state, more presence of the
How
state,
does that
is
relate to
dangerous.
over here, though? What we're doing? You follow what's going on over here?
Yes, closely.
It seems very similar when it comes to how the Netherlands is dealing with St. Martin. They make the same reference of corruption and so on, and as a result, they're making their presence felt in so many areas.
Well, thank you for bringing that up because I see a lot of similarities, and I think, again, it's my conviction that France and Holland are speaking to each other. And
As it
and
relates
as a matter of
to-
fact, there's a particular prefect, which is the equivalent to
The governor.
well, yes and no. The one that I'm referring to, he is now a prefect of the region of Guadeloupe.
Okay.
And we have our prefect, a delegate prefect, which is under his supervision. But he is the one that said, before he became prefect of Guadeloupe, he is the one that said something on radio that made me realize that they are talking
Yeah.
France
Dutch.
and Holland,
Yeah.
because he was in an interview on SOS Radio on the French side, and when I think Billy D said, well, I know the Dutch side has to receive, I think, 550 million.
Yes.
Remember that? And then he said, no. They're not going to get 550. They're going to get 475. I was like, wait, this guy
That's-
giving details.
He's
And
on
that
the
was
money.
way before. Yeah.
He's
yeah.
on
And
the
then
money.
he said, well, in a few weeks from now, I'll be in Holland speaking to my counterpart.
Wow.
So, okay.
Food for
so-
thought, folks.
Okay. You
I
see?
mean, on
So-
this side,
so-
this is very interesting, an interesting development.
Yeah.
Because I want to mention as well, because of waste sorting problems that we're having over here with the Almighty Dump in the heart of town. Now, the man that is responsible for dealing with the countries outside of Holland,
Yeah.
which is Curaçao, St. Martin, and Aruba,
Knops. Yeah.
yes, he mentioned that he's holding talks with the French part of the
Of
island
course they are.
in relation to addressing the situation.
They are.
So, look out, people. We don't know what's going on. I have to take a break, Mr. Sharville.
Yes,
And I need
yes.
to talk to you about a few things, but I really wanted you to share with our listeners on this part of the island those feelings, because I think the visit of Mr. Macron was received in very different ways for some people,
Yes.
and I believe that it would have been nice to have somebody explain
Sure.
from the council, because you didn't get a visit from him.
No,
really.
no official visit.
no official visit.
No official invitation either. Actually, if you look good at the images, the TV images, you would see only the president himself, President Gibbs, and a vice president. Not even the other. None of the other vice presidents were invited there.
But what you've explained now makes sense about why he visited and did it the way he did.
yeah, it has a
that was
logical
important.
explanation.
All right, let me take a break. And when we come back, we'll continue to speak to Mr. Jules Charvel. He is leader of the whole party in the French part of the island and also a territorial councillor for the collectivity on the French part of St. Martin in the north, in Marigot. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with him. All right, welcome back to Viewpoint for today. Wonder More here with my guest, Mr. Jules Charvel, who is visiting us. Why am I stumbling on visiting? Visiting us from the French part of the island in the north, and we're happy to have him. We don't have him that regularly. These are guys, and even the president. Mr. President, I'd like to extend an invitation to you, please, sir. You can come and pay us a visit and tell us what's going on. We'd love to have you. All right, I'm talking to Mr. President Gibbs.
Yes, of
I'm just
course.
putting it in the air so
Yeah.
that he knows. I certainly don't mind having him, because I believe that the oneness of this great country, and talking about oneness as we jump back into this conversation, I get the feeling that there are lots of similarities when it comes to Holland and St. Martin in the
Yes.
Kingdom of the Netherlands, and the Republic of France and the collectivity of St. Martin
Yes.
as it relates to the French. And I guess there is some way that we can explain this similarity, because I just want to put this on the table for discussion before I turn you loose to explain that. There are some school of thought on the island for some people who are yet with us, who feels that if ever St. Martin is going to get to where it's supposed to be, it means that the people of both sides is going to have to come together
Yes.
and make it happen. Other than that, we're going to continue with this tugging in between. How do you
Yes.
feel that?
Absolutely, that's the only way it's going to happen. And it seems to me that France and Holland, they know that, both of them, and they trying their best for something like that not to happen. For some time now, that you see France and Holland having the similar kind of attitude, their policies, and are pretty similar when it comes to Holland policies towards Dutch St. Martin, France policies towards French St. Martin. But since Irma,
Yeah.
everything even, I would say, began to accelerate. I see a major similarity.
In the high supervision area?
Yes, yes. Well, I don't want to, no, not yet, not about higher supervision. I'll talk about that just now. But when it comes to the money, let's say the help,
Okay.
we know that the talk that went along that 550 million, and Holland said, well, we're going to give you the money, but at a condition. And I think there were two conditions.
Yes.
Remind me, it
establishing
was
of-
something
of
chamber of,
the integrity chamber.
integrity, and the other one was they need also control of the immigration,
Yes, border control.
right? Border control. Those were two major. And then if that
Attachments.
happens, then And I think it happened and in the change of government or just before. I don't remember. Maybe you can tell
Yeah,
me.
but just before before the government changed, he actually signed off.
And then
on
they
it.
said, okay, we're going to go ahead and I think via the World Bank, etc., things happening began to happen lately. But the deals start to go forward for the money, all right, whether it's going to, how it's going to come, etc. But on our side, the French side, something like that happened in a similar manner, but it was not publicized as, you know, everybody would hear about the Dutch side. It was in the news, on the radio, but with us, it was all done quietly and in agreements.
Okay, hold
Yeah.
your thought for a second. Let me
Sure.
take a call for you because there's a call online. Let's get a call. Good afternoon, caller. Go ahead. You're on.
Yes, you mentioned
Yes, caller.
Dutch. Hello?
Yes, go ahead. You're on,
You
man.
mentioned the French and Dutch, but also the British. All of them keep one head. Thank you.
Say that again, ma'am.
You mentioned the French and Dutch
Yes.
holding one head, but also the British. They think alike.
Oh, all right. Thank
She's-
you.
She's right.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
that's a good
caller.
observation.
You're so right. You're so right, because I was in Angola 10 days ago and holding a conversation. Actually, they asked me to have an interview, and in an interview, I explained
Yeah.
that if Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Martin, both sides, and St. Barts don't hold hands, the British, the Dutch, the French, and the caller's right, they have a plan for us. Because being over there, I used to go over there pretty often, but I haven't been there since Irma, and I saw what happened, so we had a conversation. But in the conversation, what he was telling me, the person I was speaking to, I realized, whoa, wait a minute, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
More presence and more, and it's now it seems like they're telling themselves, well, we have to take back these places,
Wow.
these islands. We have to get back control, full control. We made a mistake by giving them autonomy.
Yeah.
10-10-10 on the French side.
Article
2007, Article 74. Angola for some while got autonomy also when they separated from St. Kitts.
Yes.
And now, for whatever reason, they're like saying, because the next step for us is independence.
Yeah.
On 10-10-10 is the closest thing to independence. Our Article 74 is the next step is independence. There's nothing stronger in the French Constitution than Article 74. Actually, there are different degrees of autonomy in 74.
Yeah.
They made sure, for now, trying hard to keep us at the lowest degree of autonomy.
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
if we get the degree of autonomy that French Polynesia, for instance, has, which is they control immigration, they have everything except defense and the money.
Yeah.
But everything else they have in Article 74. So we can reach to that.
Yes.
But they'll
They
fight to
keep
make sure we don't get it, because the next thing they know, hey, these guys can think about independence. And if we think about independence, we're not going to do it by ourselves.
Wow.
Maybe we're going to join up with Angola's Dutch side. And so they're seeing that. And to me, they're panicking.
Yeah.
And now they find Irma as an excuse now to
get
come
control.
back. Yes. For instance, higher supervision. Now let's talk about Macron's visit, President Macron's visit. A lady, it seems like most of the persons he talked to were ladies. This lady was a lady from France. And her question to him was, President, don't you think that you should be thinking about higher supervision? There are a lot of us, listen good, there are a lot of us that think that it is necessary. The lady said that. And I was like, what did she say? And then he paused. For a split of a second, he paused. He thought good before answering. And he didn't say yes or no. He said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Okay? Answer to that question.
Yes.
I will put more control. I will bring more inspectors. And I'm going to tighten the screws. So, in French, je vais resserrer les vis. Mean to say, we're going to
Tighten up.
really, yes. So, they'll send more their people. So it's already happening.
And it's the same thing over here.
That's what I'm saying. I'm surprised to see, okay, I'm hearing some people saying, well, it is necessary, but I know that when we wanted back then, I'm saying we because I consider myself from both sides as a St. Martiner. And
Yeah.
I live over here. I feel that I'm from here, from Friendside, from all over. I'm from St. Martin. So I can talk as a St. Martiner. What I used to see if we needed more police force, they would come from Curacao or
Yeah.
Aruba. Here,
They come
suddenly,
from Holland.
since Irma, I could understand at the time, weeks after Irma, yes, we needed help and so, but still after Irma, I'm seeing still that presence of the marechaussees. I'm not afraid to say it. And no more our Caribbean Antillean people come in
Help
as
to
police.
help. Yeah, but let me-
and even the control of the police self.
Let me
Check it
give
out
you a
good.
my $64 question, because I think this is important. What does that say to us now? On
Well,
both
it-
sides,
it tells
as
us-
well as in Anguilla. What are we supposed to be doing now to prepare ourselves to either remain enslaved and controlled, or to take our own responsibility?
Well, listen, we the people, we can feel a certain way about it, or we can, tell ourselves, speak among ourselves, so said, prepare ourselves, but it has to begin with our leaders. That's what they're there for. Our leaders over here, the government, the parliament, they have to react to that. Same thing. The territorial council on the French side, the executive council, the president, the prime minister over here, they're the one that have to understand, listen, are you going to just let us go? Let it happen? You've seen the plan unfolding. What are you going to do? React to it or just accept it? So now, I'll tell you something. If they don't do something, the people will react to it, but I'm hoping that it won't be too late.
Yeah.
Because it's happening fast, at
Yes.
least on the French side.
Both sides.
It's amazing the amount of high civil servants that are just coming in, and Macron promised to send more, but he said on request of our president, he's actually telling us, your president asked for this. And there is a certain civil servant, he's the highest civil servant in our setting. And so he's like next to the president, but he controls the entire administration.
Yeah.
They just sent someone on September 3rd, 2018, to sit next to him from France.
All right. Allow
Yeah.
me to put this forward for this conversation. You just painted a picture of what is happening in the north. A similar situation happened over here, where the Dutch journalists in the Netherlands questioned Mr. Knops as to whether they are taking over St. Martin, and he hesitated and then responded that they are not. There's no intention to take over St. Martin. But surely St. Martin cannot do it by itself. And upon their request, they're going to offer help.
You
It's
see?
the same
Same
thing.
thing.
you
Same
said a
thing.
moment ago.
There's something called Agence Française de Développement, which is the French Agency for Development. That would be the translation. And they're in Africa. They're all over the place. But instead of giving us financial help, what they're doing, they're sending these people. But they said the president asked. Okay, the president said we need people, more technicians, etc. And they're sending them, and they're paid by these people, this agency.
Yeah.
And it says, okay, this is our form of help. This is how we're going to help you. We're going to send these people, and we're going to pay them. But these people are here doing what? They're controlling, and they're put in key positions. So they're actually running the place. You see, and it's happening to to us. And the population is not aware. Okay, I would talk about it. I'm talking about it, but I'm going to talk about it more and more,
Yeah.
so that people can understand what's happening to us.
But it's the same situation unfolding over here. The help is being offered by the Dutch. 470 million euros were placed in a trust fund in the World Bank for us to use for the recovery and the redevelopment of St. Martin. And yet, they are the ones who are administering the money and spending the money, and the consultations and everything. It's the same picture you're painting here.
And it's coming slowly.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. How slow.
Well,
A lot of people will tell you that they're not seeing anything.
Well, I'll tell you something. Back in November 2017, the Prime Minister of France was visiting the French side. And on that day, he managed he managed to make to have our president of the collectivity sign a document, an agreement, and in that agreement, there was 72 million euros. I would say put together as a promise from the French government that you will get 50 million for the functioning. Since you don't have any revenues, you need to keep the collectivity afloat, mostly for the salaries and so pay the civil servants. So we're going to allocate 50 million. So this 12 millions would be for the money you're going to lose for the land tax. 10 million. This is a certain amount of money we give you every year. But we're going to advance it. So in total, 72 million, right? That was back in November. But, and that's what I said, that's why I said just now, there were conditions. In that document, to the end, they said, well, there's a second contract agreement that you have to sign when you come to France in the next 2 weeks. And that one will be for the reconstruction. But this first contract here for the 72 million will only go into effect when you sign the other one, when you come to France. So you're not getting that 72 million yet.
When you sign the second one.
When you sign the second one, we'll consider that first contract is valid. But guess what? The second one now, that you're going to sign in 2 weeks, you will have no input. That will be based on a report that will come from this gentleman I talk about, the prefect that is now prefect in Guadeloupe. He was supposed to make a report on the general situation and recommend his recommendations. And based on that report, we're going to make up that second agreement, and you're going to, and when you sign that, then the 72 million going to go into effect. Well, our president signed both. He signed the one here. He went to France on the 28th and the 21st, the following day of November 2017. He signed the other one. But guess what was in the other one? I mean, among other things, expropriation, deconstruction, and etc. And today, he's stuck because he had no input. But yet, it is saying that collectivity is engaging itself to do this, to do that. It is them that prepared that. And when you read it, you would swear that President Gibbs discussed and said, okay, this is what I'm proposing. No, it never happened that way. You see? And the 50 million, that's where I want to go. That was promised. We only got so far 25 million from it. And we almost back in November 2018, a year ago. So we got 25 million, I think 12 million 12 million 5. And the year's ending, and I think based on what the president gives us, he said it this morning again on radio, that he is still waiting for the next 25 million. But in the meantime, though, he signed the other contract.
And he hasn't gotten the rest of the money yet.
Based on a promise of the 50 million. And so that contract now has some deadlines. One was in June 2018, where he had to give the list of the areas that he would consider to be dangerous, where they would have to eventually expropriate people. By the end of this year, he has to give another list, which was the second contract. So that is going ahead, but the money now
is slowing coming.
And he went sign the second one, thinking that the money
would become.
So you see the trap.
So they're holding the money
strategy.
Like
as I said, I'm seeing similarities in
both sides.
It's a matter of well, actually, this same gentleman, Prefect Gustin, his name is, that is now prefect of the region of Guadeloupe. He still is in charge of reconstruction here, based on a delegation he got from the government of France. So he's carrying two hats. But he actually is the person that is controlling everything. And that in the beginning of that same report that I talk about, that he prepared, he is saying, listen, for years and years, you people from the French side, you've been neglected by France. You've been living without interference without the presence of the state. You've been closer to America than France, etc., which is very true up to the 60s, 70s. But now, that is going to change. And they're telling themselves, yeah, you know, those old habits that you had, the way you used to live, and so that is over. Now, And mostly that some people ask for more presence of the state. Well, we're going to give you more presence of the state.
I want
And,
you to wrap it up.
That's what we're getting.
I want you to wrap it up for me because I have to go.
Yeah,
Short of time.
yeah. Well, what could I say more? I mean,
I
it's just
think
that,
one line would be
yeah.
appropriate as
Yeah.
to what we need to we need to start waking up and realize what's going on.
Well, as I said earlier, it starts with our governments. I
Yeah.
think that both sides, they have to sit together. And caller, you're right, including Anguilla, including St. Bart's. It is where those three islands have to come together. It's a regional problem that we
Yeah.
have, and it's a decision that they took, I don't know from when, but whether it's England, France, Holland, and it is our local leaders that have to sit together to see
and
how
make things happen.
what would be the way forward, making sure that
In the best interest of us
yes,
as a people and a region.
yes, yes,
All right, I gotta get you back in because I mean this was so fruitful.
yes. Thank
I
you.
know,
Thank you for the
I
invitation.
really appreciate the information to my listeners, and also to demonstrate the great similarity between what's happening on both sides. All right, thank you, Mr. Charvel, for coming.
You're welcome, Wendell.
All right, folks, we got to wrap it up. We're over time already. We want to thank Mr. Charvel for coming in and sharing with us. We'll be back again tomorrow, God's willing. We invite you to come and join us at 12, and we look forward to your participation in the next program. Until then, enjoy your day. Bye-bye.